Hey there. Our next icon that we're going to learn how to draw is going to be this hand holding the smartphone here. And as usual, step one is to zoom in on it. So space bar plus command, and we can click and drag and zoom in until we get a pretty good look at that. Now, even though this has more shapes to it, it's still pretty simple, right? So the most complicated thing that we're probably going to do in this is an operation to create this space between the hand and the smartphone. All right. So, but first things first, let's go in and sort of take a look at how everything is constructed. The smartphone itself is pretty simple. We just have for the screen a rectangle. For the body of it, we just have a rounded rectangle. And for the home button, we just have a simple ellipse. All right, then over here, we have the fingertips. All right, we've got 4 fingertips. We have, and if we look at one, we can see that it's probably just an ellipse plus a square. And then that shape has been repeated 3 times down here to create the other fingers. All right. That also appears to be the case for our thumb. And then we have some sort of random shapes over here. This looks like it might be the quarter of a circle, so on and so forth, right? So let's take a look and see how this is done. This one might get a little convoluted. So be patient and buckle in, and we'll get there. All right, so this stroke and fill is left over from the last thing that I drew. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to something that I think will probably make a little more sense and make it easier for us to see what we're doing. And that's a null fill and a black stroke. So if I go to my rectangle tool, I'm just going to start kind of tracing out the elements, right? So that's the screen. That is the body of that. And I'll pull in the corners. Oop, not rotate them. I will round the corners, right? And then I will change to my ellipse tool, and I'll draw from the center with an option and a shift until I get that looking just like I want it. And then importantly, I'm going to select these 3 objects, pick a key object, in this case it'll be the body, and I'll align them all center on the horizontal axis, right? So now I know those things are all lined up. All right, so the next thing are these fingers, right? So let's figure those out. That looks pretty straightforward. If we go up here, it looks like that's a simple ellipse. And we'll zoom in a little bit closer. And to me, it looks like that is probably constructed something like that, right? So if we take those 2 shapes and go to our Pathfinder and unite them, to me that looks pretty much like a finger. And I'm just going to scooch that in a little bit. And then I'm going to option shift drag that to clone it and bring it down. And I'm going to do it again. And these can overlap a little bit. And I'm going to do it again. Oop. Do it again. Until I have these 3 fingers. So let me deselect all to make sure that's all I have selected. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to go ahead and Pathfinder unite those. All right. So you can see so far that's not too bad. This space right here is kind of arbitrary between the phone and the fingertips, but we're going to try to make that more standardized later. All right. So if we wanted to, we could just draw this over to get this thumb shape down. But why don't we just clone this guy with an option shift drag, and we'll rotate it and scale it up a little bit because we know the thumb is bigger than some fingers. And here I'm just going to go to my direct select tool and grab these 2 points and bring those down until they're roughly in position. Okay, so now all we have to do is figure out how the rest of this hand is created. It looks like we have some sort of circle here, like that might actually be part of the same circle. And then we have a radius here that looks like it's defined by this phone. And then we just have sort of what looks like maybe a 45-degree angle. So let's just play around with these shapes and see if we can find the right combination. So if I kind of pull that out and move that up, that gets us pretty close. I can scale that down a little bit. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's raining pretty hard outside, so if it's a little noisy, forgive me. I'm going to just take a quick look in keyline mode to see what the juncture of these two shapes looks like. So Command Y, and you can see that those actually line up pretty good. All right, so let's go out of Command Y mode and go back to preview mode, and we can just draw this shape. So there are a number of ways we could do that. If we're feeling lazy, we could just go down here and pick it up at that anchor point and draw a rectangle, and just with our direct select tool, grab this 1 point and just bring it in until it lines up. All right, so now it looks like this hand shape is actually getting pretty close to what we need it to look like. So I'm just going to go ahead. Oh, it's 3 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and select these 3 shapes or objects and unite them with our Pathfinder. And now all we have to do is figure out how to punch this guy out. All right. So the way that we do this, if we want to get that to be a nice uniform size and shape, is what we would do is determine, and this is probably best in keyline mode, we would take a good look at that, and we can select this shape, copy it, and then we're going to paste in place. And I could simply scale it up from a corner point, grabbing that and option scaling, which actually might not be bad, right? I could scale that up until it looked like it perfectly aligns with this finger. In fact, why don't we do that? That's actually going to be easier, I think, this time around. All right, so once we have that lined up, it's not going to be perfect around this radius, but I think it's good enough for government work. So now if we look at this in keyline mode, we can see that that lines up pretty good. These fingers are a little too far out, so I'm going to actually pull them out and then pull them back in, and we'll get those to line up perfectly using our smart guides. All right, so again, we go to Command Y, and now I'm going to take this extra shape out here, and I'm going to make sure that's in the front by going to Arrange, Bring to Front. Then I'm going to Shift, select my hand shape, and then I'm going to click on minus front. All right, so and what that does is punches that shape out of the hand shape. So all that's left to do now is build our background shape and then color all of these guys, right? So what I can do is select these 2 objects and unite them. And then this is a special operation, but I think it's important to make sure that a complex minus front operation works right. I'm going to go up here under Object, under Compound Path, and make that a compound path. Then I'll select the phone body shape and minus front. So now when I apply one fill to that, it fills properly. So I'll take the stroke off of that, and then I'll do the same with my sort of hand elements and make those white with no stroke. And then the last thing I'm going to do is use my rectangle tool and shift, drag, release to make a nice square, and then go to my radius indicator and pull that in a reasonable amount. And now obviously I can't see anything because it's white, but I'll select all of these objects, deselect my background object, and I'm going to move them out here so I can see what I'm doing a little bit better. With my background selected, I'm going to go to my eyedropper tool, and I'm going to sample the background. And as usual, because it's the most recent thing I've created, it's going to be the uppermost object. So I'm going to go to my black arrow, right-click on the object, arrange, send to back, and there we go. Then I group all of these guys. If I look at it in keyline mode, you can see it looks like I want. And then I'm going to bring that down. Not copy it. I'm going to bring it down into position. And we're done. All right. Next, we're going to be working on the flame icon. And that's going to primarily be done using the pen tool. So stay tuned for that one, and we'll see you in a little bit.